Alors aujourd'hui, je suis super contente d'interviewer une femme que je suis depuis des années sur Internet. Une femme que j'admire beaucoup pour sa détermination, pour sa créativité, pour son travail, aussi, pour ses livres et pour son style aussi. Donc, je vous présente aujourd'hui Tracey Cleantis Dwyer. Hey Tracey, I'm going to let you introduce yourself in English, so we'll go with the flow with English for the rest of the interview.
Okay, that sounds good, as my English is a little better than my French. Uh, my name is Tracey Cleantis Dwyer. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and also a life coach. And I have authored 2 books, The Next Happy, Letting Go of the Life You Planned and Find a New Way Forward, which I imagine we might touch on tonight. And my second book, An Invitation to Self-Care. And I'm in private practice in Pasadena, California. And that's my bio.
Great. So to tell you the truth, I haven't read the book we're going to talk about today. I've read the other one, An Invitation to Self-Care, because of our friend Jody Day. And but what led me to this interview is because there's a follower of mine that wrote a piece for a World Childless week that is going to be published in a week. And in that piece, she wrote that a book that was a game changer for her was The Next Happy. And I'm saying it and I have the chills.
Right.
Yeah. And when I read her text, I felt like, okay, this is really important. I think I have to catch this opportunity and reach out to you, first of all, to give you that testimony, and then to get to know a bit more about this book that was life-changing for this woman. So and it's weird because, you know, this book, I always call it The Next Happy Me. I don't know why. So I told myself before the interview, so I'm gonna listen to The Next Happy You. The Next Happy You, Tracey. So first of all, what led you to write that book?
Well, as I think anyone who's gone through infertility or seeking a child knows, there is so much available when you're trying to conceive. And at the time, I came at the end of my search and addiction, I would say, to conceive. There was nothing. And I'm so happy that there are so many books and so many resources now. But at the end of my journey, there was nothing.
Really?
And I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't even actually consider therapy initially, which is surprising because I'm a therapist. But there was nothing. And I really wanted a resource, and didn't consider writing a book for many years after the end of my journey. Mm-hmm. I started to be invited to events to speak on a life after infertility. Mm-hmm. And is it possible to be happy? And it was only in those events that I really learned that I had a lot to teach. Wow. That I learned a lot in the journey because there was nowhere to go, that I had learned so much about how to get from absolute despair to the next happy. In that, I realized that it was not just true for infertility, but that the lessons I learned were true for anyone letting go of any kind of dream. And I would say that that's universal. I think if you're, over 21, you've given up some kind of dream, wanting a different kind of family than you had, or wishing you'd gone to a different school, or, I wanted to be something that I can't be. So it was out of that, that motivated, that desire to write a book that would give people, I wanted to hold people's hands and say, I know you maybe you don't want to give up, and that's okay. You don't have to. And the book was very much, asking and inquiring. I think both of my books are not didactic or pedantic, but I wanted to serve as someone who walked the journey and gently hold your hand and walk you through that process. And that was my vision for The Next Happy.
Wow. And how do you hold our hands in this book?
Gently, with humor, with kindness and compassion. And I think how I held the hand of the reader the way that I needed my hand to be held. I wrote the book that I needed.
Wow. What was the greatest discovery you made writing that book about yourself and about infertility in general, the life after infertility?
I think that it's interesting. I came to some of the answers in writing the book. I came to some of the answers before, and some of the answers came even after writing the book in being interviewed about the book, that there was a greater understanding of my own journey in infertility. One of the questions that I address in a moment that I had with a therapist, and was a profound moment for me. This therapist asked me, why do you want a child so much? And at the time, it seemed the most ridiculous question in the world. It was like, why do you want oxygen? Or why do you want water? It seemed so self-evident and absurd that I didn't want to engage with it.
Kind of brutal also.
Yeah. But I sat with that question.
Okay.
And discovered that there was a symbolic meaning in this quest.
Okay.
That there was something even beyond a literal child for me.
Yeah.
And that in that pursuit, there was an attempt to create a different kind of childhood for myself. That part of the fantasy was giving a child a different kind of experience than I'd had.
Okay.
And in that, I felt an obligation then to begin a relationship with myself in a different way, to parent myself in a different way.
Okay.
That ultimately led to my next book, An Invitation to Self-Care.
Yeah.
Because prior to that discovery, I had not engaged in great self-care. That I was treating myself the way I had been treated growing up. And so, yes, a child would have been wonderful, but would it had led me to that insight? Could I have continued to live my life in a way that was unkind to myself and lacking in self-care as I was giving that care to someone else? Perhaps. I hope that, if I'd indeed had a child, that in caring for another, I might have gotten to that self-care piece. But ultimately, that question was vitally important. Why do you want this so much? What's the symbolic meaning beyond the literal child?
The symbolic and challenging the reality also.
Yes.
So thinking about the symbolic and then bringing it back to reality, facing reality, and looking at reality, making choices, real choices to look forward to see what's going to be the next happy.
Yes.
What's going to be in it for me in this life?
I do think, and I warn the reader to not too quickly push to the next happy, to not too quickly push for the next dream or the next thing, or to skip the suffering, to skip the grief, and to too quickly find another goal.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
I think in not sitting in the process and not allowing that process.
The main problem is that nobody wants to suffer, right? So, but I get what you mean. There's a danger in going too fast in the process and skipping the part where feeling the hurt, the loss, the not knowing where to go, the liminal space, really, which they call it.
Yes.
So, okay, that's very enlightening. Thank you for that. And another question that pops is, how do you find that next happy you?
I think it comes from not from really the grief, allowing the grief, and not in a way not seeking it in a kind of way. It's a sort of has a trickster quality to it. I mean, I think that there's so much about, for me personally, the kind of addictive quality of goal setting that changed out of this next happy experience. That now I have preferences. Now I have things I want to do. Now I have, I would like this rather than that, or I'd like to try this. But this whole experience has changed how I approach dreams.
Yeah, how you name them. It sounds like more of a gentler approach to yourself. Absolutely. Rather than a competition or a quest towards a desperate quest towards happiness.
Yes.
In the way society sees it, like having a white picket fence, big house, a car, 2 kids, and so
And it for me and for so many people that I interviewed in the book, with so many different kinds of dreams that they gave up, the happiness snuck up on them. The the next thing, it didn't really make sense. It wasn't something that they expected. It was a surprise.
Yeah.
But it came not by seeking. It came by letting go.
Allowing things to just be as they are, accept what is put in front of them, and just accept to live the experience, even if it's a suffering one. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you, Tracey, for sharing this with us today. And you're the living proof it's possible, and it's everybody has their own road. Your road was visibly to write about this. For another person, it could be to sing about it, to plant, to teach, to whatever. But everyone has to find their own road, really, and there's no guide to that.
And I would say, as much as I loved writing the books, and I absolutely have, and it's been extraordinary to hear from women that I've never met that the books have been meaningful. It's beyond, the testimony that you shared. It is beyond. I would say that the real next happy for me was developing a relationship of loving kindness and a relationship of self-care. That's the real next happy.
Wow. I'm really touched by that, as you can see. And I can tell you, I'm trying to, I'm studying to become a therapist, and it's the biggest challenge for me and for my colleagues, really. And it's I think it's not to be promoting, but really, if you don't know about this book, well, maybe you read the next Happy and then jump into the second book to visit the Tracey's Road, and maybe you will find comfort and a friend to guide you. So thank you very much, Tracey. I'm really touched and very privileged to have been able to talk with you tonight.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care.